Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here for the third course in GoFutureNow's Advanced Courses series. And we're going to start this third course with a review of what we did last time, which is what we usually do. Okay, so in that review, I'm going to talk about using the verb to be in the present tense, using the verb to be in the present tense in negative form, and using the verb to be in the present tense in question form. Okay, so that's what we did last time. You want to take a look at it. You probably won't have time to copy this, but you can view it again. And if you didn't see it last time, I will send it to you as a video. So we'll start with this. The verb to be in the present tense in negative form. And this is what we studied last time. And here is some 5 examples that we looked at last time. They're not studying English right now over the computer, right? That's the negative form in present tense. The English teacher is not ready to start today's class. So that is also the negative form in present tense. Robert and Dora are not intermediate ESL students. Number 4, she's not very happy with her online courses. And number 5, all of the students are not working very hard in the class. So those are the 5 sample sentences that we did last time. And if you can see, all you have to do is put not at the end of the verb or after the verb to be, and that makes it negative. Okay. Then we're going to move on to the next slide, and we're going to look at the verb to be in the present tense in the negative form. And this is with contractions, okay? So again, these are the same sentences that we looked at last week. And those examples are, they aren't studying English right now over the computer. The English teacher isn't ready to start today's class. Robert and Dora aren't intermediate ESL students. Number 4, she isn't very happy with her online courses. And number 5, all of the students aren't working very hard in the class. And if you see here, all you have to do in order to do the contraction with the verb to be and not is you have to combine the verb to be are or is and not, and you put the apostrophe between the N and the T, and you take out the O, okay? Moving on, the last thing that we did last week was the verb to be in the present tense in question form. And all you have to do here, you have to take the verb to be, you put it in the beginning of the sentence, all the way in the beginning of the sentence, and you add the question mark at the end. And this is what that sounds like. Are they studying English right now over the computer? That's a question, right? It starts with the verb to be. Is the English teacher ready to start today's class? Same thing. Are Robert and Dora intermediate ESL students? Number 4, is she very happy with her online courses? And number 5, are all of the students working very hard in the class? So that's the verb to be in the present tense in question form. And again, all we did, we put the verb to be in the beginning right before the subject. And what you see highlighted in this slide is the verb to be in the beginning and the subject, okay? So that was last week's class. And now we're going to move on to this week's lesson. And this week's lesson is very similar to last week's class. In this week's lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the verb to be, but we're going to look at it in the past tense. So the first thing we're going to do is using the verb to be in the past tense. The second thing, using the verb to be in the past tense in negative form. And the third thing, using the verb to be in the past tense in question form, okay? So we did this already in the present tense, but now we're going to do it in the past tense, okay? So this is where you should start writing and you should start taking notes, right? In the next slide, I'm going to show you the verb to be in the past tense. So here we have all of the combinations with the subject and the verb. I am, he is, it is, you are. You are again in the singular and plural. She is, we are, and they are. Now let's look at the first one. I am, and then you want to say, well, how do you say that in the past? So I am in the past would be, and it's going to show up on your screen momentarily, I was, right? So I am in the past is I was. You are in the past is you were, right? And that could be for singular and plural. Let's say this is singular, right? You as tú, you were, all right? He is in the past is he was, okay? That's third person singular, so it's going to be was. She is in the past is also going to be was, so it's going to be she was. And then it is third person singular, so it is in the past is also going to be was, so it was, it is, it was. Now we go on to the next one. We are, that's no longer third person singular, so you want to use were. We were. And it's going to be the same thing with you are and they are. You are changes to you were, right? So you are, you were. And they are changes similarly to they were, okay? So there you have it. This is very important that you understand the present and the past, right? So we have I am, I was. He is, I'm gonna go from left to right. So I am, I was. He is, he was. It is, it was. You are, you were. And then again, doesn't matter if it's singular or plural. You are, you were again. She is, she was. We are, we were. And they are, they were. Okay, so that's all of them. What I want you to notice is third person singular is was, but also for I am, I was. That's also was. Okay, so you use was for I, for he, for she, and for it. Everything else is were. You were, we were, they were. Okay? So if there's any questions, please let me know if this is the first time that you are seeing this. If not, then that's good because we are going to go on to writing sentences. I'm going to put 5 sentences on the screen and I'm going to ask you to write these 5 sentences in the past using the verb to be in the past. And you don't have to do contractions because we're not doing that yet. So I want you to write the full form, right? So look at the first one, and the first one is blank, a student of English, and I want you to use she. Blank, a student of English, and I want you to use she. So you can put it on the chat, you can write it in your notebooks. I'm going to show you the answer because we have a lot of material. So I'm going to show you the answer in about a minute, but I will give you some time to write it if you want to practice the answer. You can always look on top so that you can get an idea of what the answer should be, right? So blank, a student of English. And in a couple of seconds, the answer is going to come up on the screen. Blank, a student of English. I want the past tense, okay? And the answer just came up now. So the answer is she was a student of English, correct, right? So we have third person singular. You want to use was. She was a student of English. You want to copy this sentence down as an example. We're going to be doing a lot of examples in this presentation. Moving on to number 2, we have they is going to be the subject, and we have close friends of mine. Close friends of mine. So I want you to write the sentence, and I want you to write it in the past tense. Okay? So again, I'll give you about a minute or two. You can copy it in your notebook. If you're a quick typer and you want to put it on the chat, you can put it on the chat and I will acknowledge it. I will let you know if it's correct or not. But the second one that we want to do is blank, close friends of mine. I want you to use they, and I want you to use the past tense, okay? And in a few seconds, we're going to see the answer on the screen. All right? Blank, close friends of mine. Okay, and there we have the answer. And the answer is they were. They were close friends of mine. Okay? So they were close friends of mine. I'm going to stop for a second. I'm going to ask everyone to make sure that when you're looking at the video that you are live. Make sure you're live. So if you move your mouse, you'll see like the YouTube video, and you'll see a button next to the pause volume. You'll see live. Make sure there's a red dot. If not, you want to click live and it's going to be a red dot. I just want to make sure everybody is with me at the same time. I want to make sure everybody's with me at the same time. All right. So let's look at number 3. Let's look at number 3. And in number 3, what you're going to see is blank, a great surgeon. Blank, a great surgeon. And the subject that I want you to use is he. So this is very similar to number 1. Okay, very similar to number 1. So let's see if I can get an answer. Okay. And blank, a great surgeon. We're going to use he, and we're going to use it in the past. I do see a comment. We do have a comment, and it says he would be was, it was, and then you were. So those are all 3 of those are correct. Those combinations are correct. Good. All right. So in a few seconds, the answer will come on the screen. Okay. In a few seconds, the answer will come on the screen, and you'll be able to see it. If anybody wants to type it out, you can also type it out on the chat, or you can be writing it in your notebooks. It's a good idea to keep a notebook. And there's the answer. He was a great surgeon. Okay, he was a great surgeon. So that would be correct. We'll move on to number 4. Number 4 says blank, a resident of this country. Blank, a resident of this country. And I want you to use I, and I want you to tell me the verb to be in the past. Okay? And remember, this one is very similar to the third person singular, right? This one's similar to the third person singular. So let's take a look at the next one, which would be using the subject I and the verb to be in the past. Okay? And our answer will show on the screen in a few seconds. So you will see it very, very soon or momentarily. You will see it, right? And there it is. And the answer is I was a resident of this country. I was a resident of this country. Okay? So hopefully you had enough time to copy these, because we are moving on to the last one on this page. And the last one says blank, responsible students. And the subject you're going to use is you, right? You. And we know that this you is plural because we're talking about students in plural, but it doesn't matter if it's singular or plural, the verb to be is still the same. Okay? So I will wait maybe a few seconds to a minute for you to be able to copy. And then in a few seconds, you're going to see the answer on the screen. Blank, responsible students, with the subject being you and the verb to be being in the past. And the answer is you were responsible students. You were responsible students. So I want everybody to look at all 5 examples. We have 5 different subjects. We have she, we have they, we have he, we have I, and we have you. And third person singular and I is was, right? She was, he was, I was. And then the others, they and you, is were. They were and you were, right? And these are the same sentences from last week. So last week we did them in the present. This week we're just doing them in the past, okay? So they mean the same thing, except for these are in the past. I'm going to wait about 1 minute to allow you to finish copying and to ask me any questions that you might have on the chat. So if you have a question or something is unclear, let me know, and then I will answer that. If you put it on the chat, I will answer it. And then in about a minute or so, I am going to move on to the next slide. Okay. So I'll give you about 1 more minute to look at this, to copy. You should be copying in your notebooks. and to ask any questions that you might have. Okay? All right. So in the next slide, we're going to look at the verb to be in the past tense and in the negative form. So we did in the past only, right? Now we're going to do past tense negative. And if you look at your screen, we're going to have I was, and then in negative, we're going to have I was not. That would be the negative form. I was, and then I was not. You were, and in negative, you will have you were not. You were not. He is, and in the negative, he is not. She is, and in the negative, she was not. Right? She was not. It was, and in the negative, it was not. And we were, in the negative, we were not. You were not. And they were not. Now, really quick, before I move on, I am going to make a quick change. And that change is just to he and she. Instead of is, it should be was. So I just did that. You'll see it on your screen, but it's just going to be a very quick change that I want you guys to notice. I should have changed that before. Okay, so it'll take about 2 seconds just for me to make that change, and then you'll be able to see it back the way it was. Okay, so I'm going to repeat these again for pronunciation purposes, and that'll give you the opportunity to ask me any questions that you might have as I continue. Okay, so I was not. He was not. It was not. You were not. Again, you were for plural, you were not. She was not. We were not. And they were not. So these are all in the past and in the negative using the verb to be. Okay? So now I'm going to give you the 5 sentences again. Okay? I'm going to give you the 5 sentences again. And these 5 sentences, what we want to do, we want to make them negative. They're already in the past. We just want to make them negative. So to make them negative, very simply, we're just going to add not at the end of the verb. All right? To make them negative, we're going to add not at the end of the verb. So for example, she was a student of English, right? She was a student of English. So how would you write that in the past? And negative, right? In the past and negative. Well, you would add not after was, right? And what will that look like? There it is. She was not a student of English. She was not a student of English. Looking at number 2, they were close friends of mine. They were close friends of mine. In the past and in the negative form, we're going to write they were not close friends of mine. They were not close friends of mine. If we look at number 3, he was a great surgeon, right? And if you want to see that in the past, he was not a great surgeon. So if you notice, it's simple, right? We only add not after the verb to be, right? And then that makes it negative, right? We can look at number 4, and you'll notice the same trend or the same thing. I was a resident of this country. I was a resident of this country. And then you change it to the negative form, and it's going to be I was not a resident of this country. I was not a resident of this country. And the last one, you were responsible students. And if you want to put that negative, you're going to say you were not, right? You were not responsible students. So this is the verb to be in the past tense and in the negative form. Okay, I'm going to stop here so that you can copy. All you're noticing is the same sentences you wrote before, you're writing them again. But the difference is you're just adding not at the after the verb to be. Okay? So I want to make sure everybody's with me and that everybody is okay. So I'm looking at the chat. I'm giving you guys a minute or two to copy. If you have any questions, put them on the chat. If you're done, you can tell me that we're moving okay. If you want me to slow down a little bit, let me know. I can slow down. The reason I'm going a little bit faster is because we are going to do some practicing later. So this is just the lesson really quick so that you can see what we're practicing today and you can get an idea of how to do it. And then later, we're going to do some more practicing, but I'm going to ask you guys to put it on the chat and things like that. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to show me that you know this stuff, okay? To show me that you understand how to use the verb to be in the past, then in the negative form in the past. And we're going to do contractions next. So you're going to be able to show me that you know how to do that with contractions. Okay, good. So we do have someone there who's saying that this person is okay. This seems to be a new student though. Smerlin Vido. So I think this is a new student. All right. So thank you for being with us. And I'm glad that you're following along. Unless this is not a new student and maybe the name is written wrong. Not sure. But we will find out. But thank you for being with us. Thank you for responding. And we're gonna move to the next slide. All right. And in the next slide, we're going to look at the verb to be in the past tense and in the negative form with contractions. We're going to look at it with contractions, okay? I was not is going to change to a contraction. I wasn't is the way you would say it, and that's the way that you would write it. I wasn't. I was not. I wasn't. You were not. You were not as a contraction. You weren't. He was not as a contraction. Similar to I, he wasn't. She was not as a contraction. She wasn't. It was not as a contraction. It wasn't. We were not as a contraction. We weren't. You were not as a contraction. You weren't. And the last one, they were not. As a contraction, they weren't. So you'll notice that for all of these, you put the verb to be in the past and not together. You take off the O, apostrophe between the N and the T. Similar to what we've done in the past. When you where are you visiting us from? Are you visiting us from New Jersey? Are you visiting us from somewhere in South America? I'm interested to find out. All right. All right, so let's keep going. I'm going to repeat all of these because what I want to do, I want to give you the pronunciation so that you know how to pronounce all of the contractions in the past. So we have I was not, I wasn't, You can repeat after me if you'd like. He was not. He wasn't. It was not. It wasn't. You were not. You weren't. Again, plural. You were not. You weren't. She was not. She wasn't. We were not. We weren't. They were not. They weren't. Okay, that's how you pronounce them. And now I'm going to give you 5 sentences, the same 5 sentences. We keep practicing the same 5 to make sure that we know how to change them, right? And what I want you to do now in your notebooks, I want you to write. I want you to write these sentences in the past, negative form with contractions. Are you Raphael's cousin? I think you're Raphael's cousin, right? That we spoke. I think. Where are you visiting us from? ¿De dónde nos visitas? While I wait for some answers, I'm curious. I know Raphael was supposed to be with us today, but I think he had some trouble. He wasn't able to make it, so he'll be with us next time. But he'll get the video. So if you guys ever, if you're in the classes regularly, and you miss a class, don't worry, I'll send you the video. But as long as you're a regular student, I don't have a problem. I'll send you the video even if you miss it. That way you can always catch up. Okay? All right. So let's look at the first one. She was a student of English. I want that negative and with a contraction. And the answer? She wasn't a student of English. Ah, you are Raphael's cousin. Thank you for visiting us. So you're in the Dominican Republic. Wonderful. Wonderful. Great to have you here. Great to have you here. I know he told me you were from the capital. My father's in the capital. He lives there. That's great. Okay, good. Answer. She wasn't a student of English. Let's move on to the next one. They were close friends of mine. They were close friends of mine. They weren't close friends of mine. Thank you, Mariana. Mariana, she wasn't a student of English. That is correct. And number 2, which I already put, they weren't close friends of mine. They weren't close friends of mine. All right. Number 3, he was a great surgeon. He was a great surgeon. Negative, contraction, past. Answer, he wasn't a great surgeon. He wasn't a great surgeon. The answer there. I was a resident of this country. I was a resident of this country. Answer, I wasn't a resident of this country. I wasn't a resident of this country. And number 5, you were responsible students. You were responsible students. You weren't responsible students. You weren't responsible students. All right, guys. So there you have it. The verb to be in the past, in negative form, with contractions, okay? I'll give you a minute or 2 to copy, to make sure that you know it, to ask questions. Ask questions. If you're noticing, I'm doing all of this in English today, right? Because we're advanced. So this is purely in English. But if you want me to repeat something in Spanish, you say, I don't understand. Repeat in Spanish, please. I'll do it. but you have to ask me on the chat. I need to know that's what you want. If you want me to repeat something that you didn't understand in English, I can do that too. Just let me know. Ask me the question and I will respond to you. If not, if I don't get questions on the chat, I think that you understand. And then I'm going to move on, because now we're going to move on to, we should be moving on to questions now. We're going to move on to questions, okay? Meaning writing the verb to be in the past with questions. Today's a long presentation, but we're going to try to do it in an hour. So we'll be finished around 8:15. But it is a long presentation. There's a lot of material today. There's a lot of information today. Okay. Actually, we're going to move on to the practice. We're going to move on to the practice now. Okay. So in the next page, I'm going to show you 5 sentences. This is the verb to be in the past tense. I want everybody to copy. Thank you, Mariana. I want everybody to copy these 5 sentences. You know why? You're going to need them. You're going to need them because now you are going to practice. Now I'm going to have you guys on the chat. You're going to be typing. You're going to be writing. Good, good. So you're going to be writing. You're going to be typing. We're going to be doing a lot. So copy these 5 sentences. These are the verbs to be in the past tense. And what I'm going to ask you to do next, after you copy them, is you're going to change them all to the negative form. The verb to be in the past tense in negative form. Okay, so here we go. The verb to be in the past tense in negative form. As you're copying these sentences, I'm going to read them one time. Number 1, they were studying English just now. Just now es como decir apenas, apenas, right? Right now es ahora en el momento, ahora mismo. Just now es apenas, no hace mucho, pero pasó. Yo cambié de right now a just now porque estamos hablando en el pasado. Entonces right now no haría sentido. La semana pasada usamos esas mismas oraciones en el presente y yo escribí right now en el momento. But just now hay que usarlo para el pasado porque es como que apenas lo hicieron, right? So they were studying English just now over the computer. Number 2, the English teacher was ready to start today's class. Number 3, Robert and Dora were intermediate ESL students. Number 4, she was very happy with her online course. Number 5, all of the students were working very hard in the class. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Do you understand all of the words? Second question, do you understand every sentence? Si hay una palabra que no entienden, me dejan saber. Si hay una oración, a lo mejor entienden las palabras, pero no entienden lo que está diciendo la oración por la orden de las palabras. Me pueden preguntar. Just let me know. Ask me the question, and I will help you through it. I'll read it one more time because I know everybody's copying in their notebooks. Number 1, they were studying English just now over the computer. Number 2, the English teacher was ready to start today's class. Number 3, Robert and Dora were intermediate ESL students. Number 4, she was very happy with her online courses. Number 5, all of the students were working very hard in the class. Okay, I want somebody to give me the answer to number 1. In the chat, I want you to give me the answer. Change number 1 to the negative form. Change number 1 to the negative form. And I'm going to look at the chat to see somebody give me the answer for number 1. Only number 1. Don't do number 2, 3, 4, or 5. Only number 1. Change number 1 to the negative form. No contraction, just the negative form. Okay, we have a question for number 3. Robert and Dora were intermediate ESL students. Roberto y Dora eran estudiantes de ESL. ESL es inglés como segunda lengua. So ESL, inglés como segunda lengua, or English as a second language. Roberto y Dora eran estudiantes de inglés como segunda lengua de nivel intermediante. De nivel intermediante. So en inglés, intermediate lo estamos usando como un adjetivo. Describe la clase de estudiantes que eran. Estudiantes de inglés como segunda lengua intermediante. Okay, that's what it means. Give me the, okay, good. So when you give me the answers, guys, thank you, Lucero, thank you, Mariana, thank you, Katia. When you give me the answer, I want the whole sentence. I want the entire sentence. Okay, aunque están escribiendo la oración entera solamente para ponerle un not, quiero que la escriban entera. Y si quieren hacer la contracción, no hay problema. If you want to do the contraction, it's okay. It doesn't matter. Esa va a ser la próxima página, pero si la saben, it's okay. So I see the answer there. They were not studying English just now over the computer, and that is correct. They were not studying English now over the computer. Let's do number 2. Let's do number 2. Good. I'm glad you. I'm glad you understand what number 3 means now. Let's do number 2, and I want it in the negative. Okay, I want it in the negative. Somebody give me the answer. I will show it on the screen. Right. The English teacher was ready to start today's class. The English teacher was ready to start today's class. All right. And let me see the answer. The English teacher was ready to start today's class. The English teacher was not ready to start today's class. That is good. That makes me happy. That's my happy face. That is my happy face. All right, so the English teacher was not ready to start today's class. That is correct. Today's class, el apostrophe S que tiene es posesivo. La clase es de hoy. La clase le pertenece a hoy, por eso tiene el apostrophe S. The English teacher was not ready to start today's class. What about number 3? What about number 3? Robert and Dora were intermediate ESL students. Robert and Dora were intermediate ESL students. What would be the answer there? What would be the negative form in the past for Robert and Dora were intermediate ESL students? Okay, so I'll wait to see an answer there. And then I will show you the answer on the screen. Everybody else should be copying as well on your notebooks. If you have the time and you already copied or you know the answer, you can use the chat and you can give us the answer. I like engagement. I like to see people giving me the answer so I know that, you know, they're engaged, they're with me, they understand. So that's also very good. Mariana, Robert and Dora were not intermediate ESL students is correct. It is right. That is correct. So that answer will come up on the screen as well. And I will move everybody to number 4. Thank you, Katia. I will move everybody to number 4. She was very happy with her online courses. She was very happy with her online courses. Let's make that negative. Let's make that negative in the past, right? She was very happy. Thank you, Lucero. And now let's move on to number 4. The verb to be in the past tense in negative form. She was very happy with her online course. And that is the answer there. She was not. She was not very happy. She was not very happy with her online courses. So I keep saying course. Course is singular, so I should be saying courses. She was not very happy with her online courses, right? And then we do have the last one. I see an answer already. All of the students were working very hard in the class. All of the students were working very hard in the class. And then negative, so you find the verb to be, you put not after it. After the verb to be, you put not, and you get your answer. All of the students were not working very hard in the class. All of the students were not working very hard in the class. So hopefully everybody's doing well. Let me know if there's any questions, vocabulary, understanding a sentence, or understanding the lesson. I'll let you know really quick again. You want to make the verb to be negative in the past, you add the word not. After the verb to be in the past, you make it negative, okay? We're going to move on to the next slide. And in the next slide, we're going to see the same 5 sentences again, but now I want you to give me all of the sentences in the past tense in negative form, but with contractions. So now we're going to move on to contractions. We're going to do the contractions again, right? What I'm going to ask you so that we can move on a little quicker because there is more. This is not it. We do have more after this. I'm going to ask you for number 1. You don't have to give me the whole sentence because you already did that. Give me only the negative contraction, the verb to be and not as a contraction for number 1. They were studying English just now over the computer. What would be the answer for number 1? Only, I only want the verb to be and not as a contraction. You don't have to write the whole sentence. You do not have to write the whole sentence. Just give me the verb to be, not as a contraction on the chat so that I know that you know the answer. Then I'm going to give you the whole sentence so that you can copy it in your notebooks. Yeah, they weren't. So that the subject and the verb to be is great. Good listening to instructions. That's excellent. That means that you understand me well, and that's what I want. So excellent listening to instructions. They were studying English just now over the computer. Changes to they weren't studying English just now over the computer. They weren't. Thank you, Mariana. Thank you, Lucero. Thank you, Katia. They weren't studying English just now over the computer. Okay, let's do number 2. Only the answer. The English teacher was ready to answer today's class. Just give me the verb to be and not as a contraction so that I know you know the answer. And then I'll give you the whole sentence so that you can copy it in your notebooks. The English teacher was ready to start today's class. The English teacher was ready to start today's class. And the English teacher, let's say if it is a man, it would be he, right? And it would be he wasn't, or the English teacher wasn't ready to start today's class. The English teacher wasn't ready to start today's class. Let's look at number 3. Robert and Dora were intermediate ESL students. Robert and Dora were intermediate ESL students. And what would be the answer for number 3? Robert and Dora. And then for number 3, what would be the answer? Let's look at number 3. What's the answer for number 3? Robert and Dora were intermediate ESL students. Right, so it would be they weren't. Robert and Dora weren't intermediate ESL students. So remember, Robert is third person singular. Robert was. Dora is third person singular. Dora was. But together, juntos, together, they son ellos. Porque la palabra and, que es y, une el sujeto. Y Roberto y Dora se convierte en ellos. And that's why it's weren't. Por eso es weren't. Si fuera Roberto solo, sería wasn't. Si fuera Dora sola, sería wasn't. Pero como son los dos juntos, es weren't. Okay, number 4. She was very happy with her online courses. She was very happy with her online courses. What is the answer there? What would be the negative for she was very happy with her online courses? What would be the answer? Right? And then only, yep, I see one, I see 2 answers. And those answers are correct. The answer is she wasn't. She wasn't very happy with her online courses. She wasn't very happy with her online courses. And there you see it on the screen written out for you. What about the last one? All of the students were working very hard in the class. All of the students were working very hard in the class. So let me see it as a negative, right? Let me see it as a negative with a contraction. Only the answer, the students weren't. All of the students weren't. That is correct. That is the answer. All of the students weren't working very hard in the class. All of the students weren't working very hard in the class. So there's all the answers right there. You have 5 sentences in the past using the verb to be in negative form with contractions. I'm going to read them one time, and I will let you guys copy in your notebooks and listen for pronunciation. They weren't studying English just now over the computer. The English teacher wasn't ready to start today's class. Robert and Dora weren't intermediate ESL students. She wasn't very happy with her online courses. All of the students weren't working very hard in the class. Okay, I'll give about 1 more minute and I'll let you guys ask any questions that you might have. If you have any questions, let me know. And then afterwards, we'll move on to the next slide. Okay. And in the next slide, we are going to look at the verb to be in question form, which is the part that we haven't done yet. So we do have to look at the verb to be in question form. I will look at the chat for any questions that you might have. So let me know if you have any questions. If not, I'll give you about a couple more seconds, about a minute or less, for you to copy these sentences. Okay. This is the advanced class. It's a lot of writing. It's all in English. It's still basic. We've done the verb to be. We've done contractions. We've done past tense. It will get more challenging as we continue. This is only class number 3. So there's a lot more classes to go. And as we continue, we get more and more in depth, or more, we look at more of the complicated rules. So we will get there. If you still feel like this is too basic, it's going to change. It really is, okay? So stick with us. If it's not too basic, study, because it will get more challenging. So you want to make sure that you know all of these things before we move on to future lessons. Using the verb to be in question form is what we're going to look at next. And here's the rule really quick. I've shown you it before. It's the same thing as in the present tense. So you take a regular statement or a sentence. Robert was a student. You look at the verb to be was and you move it to the beginning. You add the question mark at the end. That's it. Was Robert a student? That's the question. It's the same thing as in the present tense. So you're really doing the same thing that you did in the present tense, right? Robert was a student. You take was, you put it in the beginning. Was Robert a student? Question mark. And that is the way that you ask a question in the past using the verb to be. Okay? So in the next slide, you're going to do that. You guys are going to write questions. This should be the last slide of today's lesson. And what I'm going to show you is the same 5 sentences. I want you to write them as questions. All right. And I'm going to look for the answers on the chat. So let's do number 1. The verb to be in the past tense in question form. Sentence number 1, they were studying English just now over the computer. Can somebody please give me that statement as a question on the chat? They were studying English just now over the computer. And I'll wait to see it. They were studying English just now over the computer. Okay? So remember, take the verb to be, move it to the beginning, add a question mark at the end. And that's going to be the question. They were studying English just now over the computer. Change it to a question. Take the verb to be, move it to the beginning, add a question mark at the end. And that's going to change it to a question. All right, and we do have an answer. And that's what it is right there. Were they studying English just now over the computer? That is correct. So let's look at the other 4 a little bit quicker. You're going to do the same thing all over again. Take the verb to be, move it to the beginning, and add a question mark at the end. And that's going to be the question. All right. Number 2. The English teacher was ready to start today's class. To make it a question, you take was, you move it to the beginning, you add a question mark at the end. And what would the answer be? I'll give you guys a few seconds to try, to type it if you want, to write it in your notebooks, or just to think about it, and then I'm going to present it on the screen because we will be finishing up in about 5 minutes or so with the class, okay? So the English teacher was ready to start today's class. As a question. Very good. Don't forget capital W, but that is correct. And the answer is, was the English teacher ready to start today's class? Just don't forget the capital W and don't forget the capital E. La W tiene que ser mayúscula porque empieza la pregunta y los idiomas en inglés se escriben en mayúscula. So, inglés, español, francés, English, Spanish, French, en inglés se escriben con mayúscula. All right, here we go. Number 3, Robert and Dora were intermediate ESL students. Robert and Dora were intermediate ESL students. How do we write that as a question? How do we write that as a question? And I see an answer there. Don't forget, Robert and Dora have to be capital letter, capitalized, okay? So that is correct, though. The writing is correct. We just need to capitalize the letters, right? So I'm gonna put it on the screen, but I'm also gonna put it on the chat. Were Robert and Dora intermediate ESL students? Question mark. Don't go ahead. Don't go too ahead. Right here. Were Robert and Dora, like that. Capital letters. Were Robert and Dora intermediate ESL students? And then the next one is, she was very happy with her online courses. So how do we do that as a question? How do we do that as a question? We take the verb was, we put it in the beginning, and we add a question mark at the end. And the answer is there. It will be on your screen very shortly. She was very happy with her online courses. Question, was she very happy with her online courses? Was she very happy with her online courses? Okay, and then the last The last one. Thank you, Mariana, for that answer. Was she very happy with her online courses? And we have the last one. So what is the last one? All of the students were working very hard in the class. All of the students were working very hard in the class. And what would be the answer if we want to write that as a question? How would you write it? And then I'll look towards the chat to see if I can get an answer there. And then I will also give you the answer in on the screen. Once I see it, I see an answer there. Were all of the students working very hard in the class? Were all of the students working very hard in the class? Is correct. That is the answer. And there you have it, guys. These are all of the sentences that we practiced in the past tense in question form. All you have to do is move the verb to be to the beginning, add a question mark at the end. And that is the answer. Okay, I'll give you about 1 more minute so that you can copy. All right, I'll give you a minute so that you can copy. Is David still with us? All right. You guys did good today. We did a good job because we had a lot of information today. We had a lot of material today. You guys were able to keep up with that information, so that's excellent. If it was a little too fast or it was a little too much, you're going to get the video in the future. You'll be able to practice it in the future. And, you know, practice is very important, because that way when you look at the later classes, you'll be a lot more prepared for what you're going to see, okay? I'm going to move on to the next slide, which is your homework. Guys, you have 24 hours to give me your homework. You have 24 hours. You have 1 day. If you give me your homework in 24 hours, I will respond. I will fix your answers and I will send it back to you. But you have to do it within 24 hours. If you do it after, I will accept it. But I might not have the time to respond because I'm working on other classes. So if you do it in 24 hours, if you do it on time, I'm going to email you back and I'm going to fix what you did wrong, if you did anything wrong, okay? Quiero que me manden la tarea dentro de 24 horas. Si la mandan dentro de 24 horas, yo se la voy a corregir y se la voy a mandar para atrás. Si la mandan después de 24 horas, yo todavía la acepto, pero el único problema es que como yo estoy trabajando con otras clases también, no es seguro que le pueda dar una respuesta. Entonces, tienen que hacer la tarea a tiempo. No es mucha tarea, solamente son 8 oraciones que tienen que hacer. Well, 16, porque son 8 en forma de pregunta y 8 en forma negativa, okay? So this is your homework. Le pueden tomar una foto, la pueden copiar o escribir, right? But you are going to need the homework in order to do it. So take this time to copy it. Here is the homework. Change all of the following sentences to their past form. Van a cambiar todas las oraciones que ven a la forma en el pasado. Then write each sentence in question form. Después de cambiarla al pasado, la van a escribir en forma de pregunta, and then in negative answer form. Después la van a escribir en forma negativa. All right, so primero tienen que cambiarla al pasado. Si quieren me pueden dar esa 8 que están en el pasado, si no está bien. Pero después que la escriban en el pasado, la tienen que escribir como en forma de pregunta y en forma negativa. Y eso es lo que me van a mandar, la forma de pregunta y forma negativa. Pero me pueden mandar las 8 originales también si quieren. All right, so pueden ser o 16 o 24 oraciones. Send it to me. Acuérdense, cada oración y cada pregunta empieza con mayúscula. Cada pregunta termina con el símbolo de pregunta. Entonces yo voy a buscar que todo esté correcto. No solamente las respuestas que estoy buscando, el verbo to be, pero también que escribieron la oración en forma correcta. You don't have to do contractions, but you can. No tienen que hacer las contracciones, pero si quieren la pueden hacer. Si la saben, la pueden poner. Y yo se la corrijo con la contracción. All right, so that's not a problem. So that is your homework. If you have any questions, let me know. Please put it in the chat if you have any questions. We're going to be finishing in about 1 minute. Vamos a acabar como en 1 minuto. Entonces, si tienen cualquier pregunta, por favor, me la ponen en el chat y yo se la respondo. O me pueden mandar un email Aquí le voy a dar el email otra vez. En el chat le voy a poner el email, On Demand Schools. My email is Rafael@OnDemandSchools. So you can send me an email there. That's where you're going to send your homework, but you can also send me an email there with classes. Si tienen preguntas después de esta clase y no alcanzaron a preguntarme en el chat, me la pueden mandar al correo electrónico. If you know other people that want to take the class, let them know. Si conocen más personas que quieren tomar la clase, por favor le dejan saber que se pongan en contacto conmigo. So that's it for today. I want to thank everybody for being with us. We finished a little bit late. We finished at 8:15, but that's because we had a little bit of problems in the beginning, so we started late. We ended up starting 15 minutes late, so we finished 15 minutes late, but we still did it within an hour, which is amazing for all the information that I gave you today. So I want to thank you very much for being with me. Remember that learning English, it could be easy if you just practice every day and you stick with us. Don't forget our website, which is GoFutureNow.com, www.GoFutureNow.com. Don't forget to visit us there. And with that said, again, I want to thank everybody for being with me today.